सबैजनालाई नमस्ते. Now we are going to conduct the webinar 100% renewable energy supply. Yeah, renewable energy technology, solar, biomass, wind have vast potential to reduce dependence on fossil fuel and greenhouse gas emissions. However, solar and wind energy have variable and uncertain generation potential. To integrate fluctuating renewable energy into the national grid, off-grid system, smart grid or energy storage technologies are essentials. Large-scale storage provide grid stability and a fundamental requirement for the reliable energy systems and energy balancing to match the demand and the supply, whereas small scale storage is equally important for small off-grid electric system for the transportation of this sector. To determine the potential role of storage in the grid, off-grid and transporting, it is important to evaluate the technical, economical and social impact as well as the sustainability of the system. Besides, it is also important to evaluate the economic of variety of potentiality competing technologies. It is expected that the webinar on 100% renewable energy supply will help understand the need of energy storage to enable renewable energy integration along with the technical, economic and sustainability of aspect while using the right system and our technology. Today, working with Alternative Energy Promotion Center and Kathmandu University, Renewable Energy Confederation of Nepal, RECON, has been able to organize the webinar to discuss and share the knowledge on 100% renewable energy. Honourable Member of National Planning Commission, Dr. Krishna Prasad Oli, former Minister and Coordinator of Advisor Committee of RECONS, Engineer Ganesh Shah, Professor Andrew Blackus, and other distinguished speakers and experts will highlight on the subject. In the matter of global context, in the context and national context as well in this webinar. However, the solar PV, thermal, biomass, wind are also the renewable energy source of energy available in Nepal, whereas fossil fuel are not available in Nepal. Hence, all the required fossil fuel are imported from foreign country. The importance of renewable energy technology is very important in Nepalese perspective. So it's the consideration of the environment, climate change, health, economic, employment creation, which have vital relationship with the renewable energy technology. So rates may be the different from point of view of investment, but it solves many problems of all work into life. So hydropower is the main source of renewable energy in Nepal. The first in Nepal, 500 kilowatt hydropower is established before 119 years. Today, around 1,400 megawatt electricity has been generated by the government entity and independent private power producer. Solar PV technology is another resource have been installed. However, the ratio of hydropower is actively encouraging. This is the most main source of energy in Nepal. The solar PV pumping system for drinking water and solar pumping system for the irrigation installed has been high impact and similarly electricity for lighting and other professional use of institutional scale by solar PV system, which is really little bit success. And solar mini grid have been introduced for optimal benefit of the uh, life. And rooftop solar net metering also is in progress. And micro hydro is the best practice in Nepal, which has been successfully implemented and have very reputed in, I think around 3,200 pico and micro hydro plant have been installed. And wind power is also introduced in small, even in small scale, and getting progress in the recent years. Some micro hydro plant have been successfully connected to the national grid. Biogas plant and domestic size of the 4,000 cubic meter are also successful in Nepal. Biomass energy is another contributing energy in Nepal. The forest resources are also used in domestic needs, and improved food stove more than 1.5 million number have been installed so far. Experts and entrepreneurs are looking for the different support from the government, non-government agency, and financial institution for the best use of the biomass renewable energy by adopting planet making and require modern technology. Nepal is going to be fully electrified in a few years. Uh, so I think this program is very suitable, and we need to hello, Sunil sir. Sunil sir, are you there?
Sunil sir. Sunil sir. Sunil sir.
Hazur.
Gunda sir ko welcome remarks
I would like to request to conduct the program.
Yes. Sir, Subodh sir lai yata panel batan. Subodh sir आउनु भएको छ प्यानलमा ल्याउनुस् न उहाँको Raji?
Yeah, I will do, sir.
Okay, I will start now. First of all, good morning and namaste to all. I am Sunil Loni, Associate Professor at Kathmandu University. I will be moderating the program, today's program. So I will be with you the next 1.5 hours, more or less. So before starting the program, I would like to thank everyone, or I would say I'm pleased that we have gracious presence of distinguished guest speakers and participants. We have Honourable Member of National Planning Commission, who will be joining soon, Dr. K.P. Oli, Registrar of Kathmandu University, Professor Subodh Sharma, former Minister of Science and Technology, Mr. Ganesh Shah, our renowned solar scientist, Professor Andrew Blackhorse, and many other prominent figures. So I would like to welcome you all to the program. So before starting the program, allow me to give a brief overview of the program, or brief overview of the seminar, 100% renewable energy or renewable supply. So as we know, almost, actually Gururaji also slightly discussed before, but I would like to briefly go through it. As we know, almost 68% traditional biomass, 25% commercial fuels, and 3.5% each electricity and modern renewables contributed to the total energy consumption in Nepal. At the same time, Nepal have abundant resources of solar energy, biomass, and some wind as well. So in this scenario, this scenario suggests Nepal has huge potential to integrate modern renewables in national energy mixture. So I believe we all participants of the seminar, this seminar, are renewable enthusiastic and fond of the clean environment. We all know renewables, solar, modern biomass, wind, have vast potential to produce clean energy and reduce greenhouse gas emission. However, especially solar, wind have variable and uncertain generation potential. There might need large, small storage, smart grid, or combination of both systems. Thus, in today's seminar, we'll hear our experts on how to ensure 100% renewable supply from fluctuating renewable sources. So today, we'll have two keynote speeches, Dr. K.P. Oli, Honourable Member of National Planning Commission, and Professor Andrew Blackhurst from Australian National University. And we'll have 5 remarks or comments on the program, on the webinar, on the presentation made by the keynote speakers. Mr. Ganesh Shah, former minister, Professor Jagannath Shrestha, Dr. Narayan Chaulagai, Dr. Lakshman Ghimire, and Mr. Naveen Bhujail. So at the end of the expert remarks, we'll open the floor for question and answer sessions. However, due to time constraints, it may not be possible for many of you to ask your question on your own. So I encourage you to put your questions or queries in the chat box, which will be taken care of. And now, as Mr. Gururaj Dhakal already welcome to the participants, so I will directly go to our registrar, Professor Subodh Sharma. He is registrar at Kathmandu University. So I would like to request Professor Subodh Sharma to make your brief welcome remarks. The floor is yours, Professor Sharma.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil Lohani. Yeah, good morning from Nepal. For Australia, it's not good morning, good day for Australia, and good day for everyone. To Dr. Sunil Lohani, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. It's indeed a great pleasure seeing you all here this morning with Honourable Member of National Planning Commission and definitely Professor Andrew. I believe we have met once, but I'm not sure. If your photograph is, wait, it's not your photograph. I see you smiling. So it's your live. And then our minister, previous Minister of Environment, Ganesh Shah, sir, who has always been a source of inspiration for us. And all speakers, all participants who are assembled here today, listening to 100% renewable supply. I would like to begin with quoting what Dr. Sunil Lohani just now said. Nepal has enormous potential for different kind of renewable energies, whether it is hydropower or solar or wind power or biogas, because of its rich water resources. And then I believe nowhere on earth one can find such a huge altitudinal variation than in Nepal. So it's a wonderful place for any kind of renewable energy research that one would like to undertake. But the dilemma here is more than 78 to 80% of the people live in rural areas. And we, the researcher, are we reaching these rural areas or not? If you look at the renewable energy potentiality and then the way it has been utilized in Nepal, if you go from east to west, say about 62% of renewable energy potentiality being captured in central development region. But if you move towards the western part of Nepal, it's only 3.08% where there is most requirement and need is. So our research should always comply with entrepreneurship, the renewable energy entrepreneurship, and we must always try to reach where there is a need. I was last year involved in a research in Jumla in a place called Mohiri Gaon, where we tried to look at the crop residues and then we tried to generate biogas there in the prevailing very cold temperature. If we can promote our research in those areas with very cold temperature where there is huge need of biogas in order to replace the fuels that they are using, that they derive from forest. In order to protect forest also, we have got to encourage biogas production there, and there is no dearth of any crop residue. So I would insist this webinar today and all the speakers to come up with a regulation whereby we could attract our researchers going to all these remote places where there is a need, and then involve our researchers not only in research but also in entrepreneurship and bring a change, so that people will feel that the presence of researcher in those areas. So my good luck to every one of you. And then thanks once again, Dr. Sunil Lohani, sir, for inviting me and giving this opportunity. It's a great pleasure having you all here this morning. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't speak too much. Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. You are quite brief, actually, more than expected. So as Professor Sharma said, we have different terrains in the country. So that means our researcher, our resources, and our entrepreneurs should reach to all the places to uplift the livelihoods of the people living or residing in those areas as well. So I hope we'll hear more on these aspects as well from our experts today. So now I would like to move on without any delay because we have time constraint. So I would like to smoothly flow the program. I'm not sure whether our KP sir, Untitled. Guraj sir.
Yes, I'm trying, but not success.
So I
please,
think I will start with Professor Andrew, right? Because we have very limited time. So I'll move on to our most awaiting keynote speaker, who is renowned solar scientist, Professor Andrew Blakers. Professor Blakers is E2 Professor of Engineering at the Australian National University. He was founder of the Solar PV Research Group at ANU. In 1980s and 1990s, his lab achieved all record efficiencies of silicon solar cell. He was co-inventor of the PRC silicon solar cell, which has 70% of the global solar market. Professor Blakers these days engaged in analysis of energy systems with 50 to 100% penetration by PV and wind with support from pumped hydroelectric storage. I request Professor Blaker to limit your speech within 20-25 minutes. Now the floor is yours, Professor Blakers.
Thank you. So I will share my screen, but I think, there we are. Have I successfully shared the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about moving to 100% renewables with a focus on Australia and Nepal. But I start with a global snapshot. The silicon solar cell is the runaway winner of the energy race. It has easily beaten every other form of energy generation. So you can see in this graph for 2019, solar and wind together are about 2/3 of net new global capacity additions, far exceeding oil, gas, coal, nuclear, hydro, bioenergy, geothermal, solar thermal, ocean, and everything else put together. So the focus everywhere, basically, has to be on solar PV and wind because they are cheap. In my own country of Australia, we are installing wind and solar very fast, faster than anybody else in the world by a large margin. So we are installing something like 240 watts of new wind and solar per person per year. And it'll be the same again this year. So for 3 years in a row, we have been around that level of installation. It's 4 to 5 times faster per capita than Japan or the USA or Europe or China, and 10 times faster than the global average. So we know a thing or two in Australia about how to install wind and solar fast. And we also know how much it costs. So as we move towards 30, 40, 50% solar and wind, then we need to worry about grid stability. Having wind and solar together is very good because often the wind blows at night and the sun never shines at night. Spreading your solar and wind collectors over a big area, all of Nepal or all of Nepal plus all of India, and interconnecting hugely reduces the amount of storage by smoothing out the local weather. So if it's windy and sunny in one place and no wind and no sun somewhere else, you can move energy from one place to another. And the amount of storage you need goes down by a factor of 5 or 10 if you can spread your solar collectors and wind collectors out widely. Of course, you need to manage demand and try and have as many loads in the middle of the day as possible. And you need some storage, and pumped hydro and batteries are the two by far leading contenders. So India and Nepal together, and Bhutan and the other small states are quite a large area, the million square kilometers or so. And it just so happens that the current state-of-the-art range for high voltage DC transmission is 3,000 kilometers at 1.1 million volts, carrying 12 gigawatts, which is twice Nepal's, or 3 times Nepal's current installed capacity, with only a 10% loss. So you can connect northwest India with the bottom of Sri Lanka and everywhere in between using current technology to smooth out the solar and wind resource across the entire subcontinent. Looking at storage, pumped hydro is by far the largest amount of storage in terms of both storage energy and storage power, because it's by far the cheapest. And Nepal has, of course, very large amounts of potential pumped hydro energy storage. Most energy storage at present in pumped hydro form is on river. So you can see an example here where you have 2 close reservoirs and the turbine can operate as a pump. So on a sunny and windy day, the water can be pumped uphill, and then in the middle of the night, the water comes back down through the turbines to recover that energy. But this is a very limited form of pumped hydro energy storage and has not much future, neither in Nepal nor anywhere in the world, compared with off-river pumped hydro. This is an example from Italy, 2 artificial reservoirs, one at the top of a hill, the other at the bottom with a height difference of 500 meters in between. And there's a tunnel connecting the two, and the water is pumped backwards and forwards between the 2 reservoirs, pumping during the day when the sun is available and letting the water come back down through the turbines at night. And the area of the reservoirs is 10 or 50 times smaller than the area of a comparable river-based system. So we at the Australian National University did a global search for all of the off-river pumped hydro sites in the world. We excluded urban areas and all conservation areas, and we found 616,000 off-river sites with 23 million gigawatt hours, which is about 100 times more than you would need to run the entire world on wind and solar, with the levels of electricity consumption found in Australia, which is among the highest in the world. So zooming in from this atlas, which is available online at a government website, you can see that, no surprise, there's a lot of sites along the Himalayas, but there's also quite a few sites in southern India and in Sri Lanka and eastern India. Zooming into Nepal, you can see that Nepal has completely unlimited number of sites. Zooming into the Kathmandu Valley, you can see that even in this little area, there's large numbers of sites. And all of this is described in great detail in our atlas. You can click on the tunnel routes or the reservoirs to get a lot of information about each one. And the upper reservoir is the light blue, the lower reservoir is the dark blue, and you can, and the tunnel route is the line. So you can go to our atlas and look in your favorite area to see how much off-river pumped hydro there is. The important thing is that the reservoir areas are small. So a lot of energy in a very small reservoir, which hugely limits the environmental consequences of damming Himalayan rivers. And this is a close-up detail of a site in India, 50 gigawatt hours. This is a big reservoir, which would be a week of Nepal's entire consumption. And you can see the upper reservoir, the lower reservoir, the dam wall and the tunnel route. And you can click on the reservoirs or the tunnel route and up comes a pop-up with lots of information. So I'd leave you to play with that. Pumped hydro has important system benefits. It's mature. There's already 170 gigawatts installed around the world. Far more sites than we need to support a global 100% renewable electricity system. There's mechanical inertia because there's a heavy rotating generator, quick response, and black start capability. So pumped hydro and batteries are matched very well together. Batteries are great for short-term storage of minutes to hours, and pumped hydro for overnight to a week or so. So now I'm going to focus on Nepal energy options. So hydro is the obvious thing that springs to mind in Nepal, and this is a graph of the number of hydroelectric power watts per person. So Iceland and Norway are up the top, followed closely by Bhutan, your close neighbour, and Canada, Switzerland, countries that you'd expect. Nepal is down the right-hand end, very far down the list. So the watts per person in Nepal is really very low at present. And obviously people in Nepal and people in India think about increasing the number of hydroelectric systems. Wind power in Nepal is very limited. Just over the border in the Tibet region, there's unlimited wind power, although not many people live there. But most of the wind power in Nepal, of course, would be on the high peaks where it would be very difficult to operate wind turbines. There might be some prospects, but they're really not very good. However, solar in Nepal is quite good. The redder, the better. Once again, over the border is extremely good. But Nepal and India are good by world standards. They're much better than Europe or North America or Northeast Asia. And because the latitude is quite low, the solar resource doesn't change too much from summer to winter. Now, there's a number of places you can put solar PV. One is on rooftops, of course, and that takes no land at all. But a very interesting and very large-scale future place to put solar photovoltaics is agrivoltaics. So these are panels on high frames on top of agricultural areas. And it turns out that you can cover a quarter or a third of the paddy or the crop and only lose about 10% of the food. So a farmer will achieve 2 cash crops from the one piece of land, a small reduction in income from their food, but a big increase in income from leasing land to a company that owns the solar panels. And this is a very well-established model in many countries. Nepal has unlimited land, effectively, to meet all of its energy needs, now and in the far future. So I want to make an important point. Nepal's future is solar photovoltaics. It's not hydro, it's not biomass. These are small, small, small. Solar PV beats everything on costs already and will beat everything even better over the next 10 years. The costs are low, they keep coming down. You've got an enormous resource and it's completely sustainable. So at the moment, Nepal has a production of 6 terawatt hours per year. And given that the Nepalese solar resource is equivalent to about 1.5 terawatt hours per gigawatt, that means that to supply all of Nepal's current production from solar, you need 4 gigawatts. And the area of panel required is 20 square kilometres, which turns out to be about 0.7 square metres per person, which is much smaller than their bed, is much smaller than the roof area. Nepal has completely adequate land to provide all of its electricity now and in the long-term future from solar PV. Now, I just want to put this in context. Australia and Nepal have very similar populations. Australia is installing 3 gigawatts of solar PV on rooftops every year. So every year, Australia installs nearly as much solar as Nepal needs for its entire current production. There is nothing hard about installing 4 or 40 or 400 gigawatts of solar PV in Nepal. Let's look to the future. At the moment, the current Nepal electricity production is about 0.2 megawatt hours per person per year. Singapore, the European Union, Australia, Northern America, all the developed countries are up around 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 megawatt hours per person. So I'll just choose Singapore, which is about in the middle. They have an electricity consumption of 9 megawatt hours per year, per person. And as we get rid of coal, oil and gas, we need to electrify everything. That's electrify transport and heating and industry. And Singapore will need about 20 megawatt hours per person per year to completely drive oil, gas and coal out of its economy and get rid of almost all of its greenhouse gas emissions. There's no reason why Nepal should settle for anything less than 20 megawatt hours per person per year. Why should Nepal settle for being not as good as Singapore or Australia or any other country? And that means that the electricity demand per person will rise 100 times over the next 30 or 40 years. And you'll need 20 to 50 square meters of solar PV panel per person to do this, which is still less than the roof area available. In other words, all of Australia, all of Nepal's electricity and also all of its other energy through electrification of transport, heating and industry, all of it can be accommodated with no land alienated at all on building roofs. And the area of land from agrivoltaics is also vastly more than required. In other words, Nepal can do the whole job sustainably at very low cost and falling cost with solar PV. And that's the way the world's going to go, even places like Nepal that have got a lot of hydro potential. The solar PV is cheap. In Nepal at the moment, you could do it at a reasonable scale for $50 US per megawatt hour. By 2030, that'll be down to $30 US per megawatt hour. It's hard to envisage hydro coming in under that price. So you've got a vastly larger resource than hydro or bio or anything else, vastly less land, 20 or 100 times less, and almost no environmental impact, quite unlike damming Himalayan rivers. So storage is required, and the options are hydro, pumped hydro, and batteries. Hydrogen is by far too expensive to compete with those three. So looking at who's got the most pumped hydro, it's Japan to stabilize its nuclear reactors, Taiwan, South Korea, United States, and Australia will actually move into second spot in a few years' time because of a large new pumped hydro system being constructed. So pumped hydro is where it's going for large-scale storage. Batteries are where it's going for short-term high-power storage. The hydrogen cycle is just nuts. You have a round-trip efficiency of about 25%. That means you have, if you have a unit, 100 units of energy, by the time you've created hydrogen and then got back your energy, you've lost 75 units of that energy. I would strongly advise Nepal not to go down the hydrogen rabbit hole and get lost. There's a potentially large market selling power and energy to India, but Nepal would be far better to sell power to India rather than energy. In other words, sell power for short periods during the evening and morning peak periods at high prices, rather than selling low-cost energy for middle of the night and middle of the day when you're competing with solar. So in conclusion, solar PV is the long-term, large-scale energy option for Nepal. Hydro and pumped hydro can easily balance variable solar in Nepal. There's so many possible sites. There's potential sales for hydro and pumped hydro balancing power to India. And the pumped hydro with 24-hour storage has far smaller reservoirs and environmental impact than damming Himalayan rivers. Off-river pumped hydro is really the way to go to minimize the environmental impact and the social impact of flooding lots of land when you build big reservoirs on rivers. Thank you.
Hello, Sunil sir.
Thank you, Professor Blaker, for insightful presentation. I think there might be some new dimension to many of participants to think of renewable energy resources, actually the modern renewable, because hydro is also sometimes we call it renewable. So let's say modern renewables, solar, wind, biomass, etc. So you emphasized solar energy has tremendous potential in Nepal, and it will certainly beat the cost to other technologies. And that is somehow, I think, valid for Nepal as well. Probably the life cycle cost we have to consider, but at least I think it is comparable to hydro electricity at the moment as well. So thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. I think there will be number of questions at the end of the session. So I will request you to also, you can yourself look at the chat box if there are any questions and prepare for the addressing those queries. And now I would like to move on. Gurraji, please surround one.
आउने चाहिँ कन्फर्मै छ तर आइपुग्नु भएको छैन सर तपाईँ गर्दा हुन्छ
So
Ganesh sir is there.
Okay, so still our keynote speaker is not at joined, so he will soon join to the program. So I would like to move on to our further remarks on the presentation or overall renewable energy systems in Nepal, or maybe policy issues of renewable energy. So I would like to request Mr. Ganesh Shah, who is former Minister of Science and Technology and currently coordinating the RECON Advisory Committee of RECON as well, for your brief remarks. So the floor is yours, Mr. Shah.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil Lohani. Dear participants of this program, and there is our Dr. Subodh Sharma and other dignitaries and Andrew from Australia. So first of all, thank you very much, Andrew, for giving the insights about the renewable energy and about the potentiality of the renewable energy in Nepal. I will put just 2-3 remarks. First, you see, the consumption of electricity, or here when you call the energy, we confuse with the electricity, you see. So here is a big dilemma, you see, that when you say energy, it means electricity. So, and that electricity means not for the other purposes, only for the light. Might be 1 bulb, 2 bulb, so that the light. So whole energy perceptions has to be shifted, that energy is needed for the agriculture, energy is needed for the industry. So first is that why we need energy for the better life and other things. So first is the concept of the energy, then the clean energy. So there are the different forms of the clean energy, or we call it, you see, there is a lot of world confused in Nepal about this, whether we call it the alternative energy, we call it the renewable energy, we call it the clean energy, you see. So we have a different perceptions about the understanding. That's why you see in Nepal, there is a alternative energy promotion center. It means it is still an alternative. It is not the mainstream. The renewable energy, how you are going to make the renewable energy as a mainstream of your energy, is one of the basic challenge I feel in Nepal. One I told you, one is how do you perceive the energy, you see clean energy for the better life, or energy consumption to some of the different countries, how low you are, because we don't use our energy in the agriculture, it's very, very low. We are very low on the industrialization, even in the agriculture, post-harvesting, other things. So that has to be shifted from energy perception, has to be shifted. Second is that renewable energy must be the main source of energy. For that, what they have shown about the potential of this, all these pumpings are very listening, attentively listening about the pumping scheme from up to down. There is a lot of discussion about all these things in Nepal. But unless you don't show a successful project, it becomes very, very, you see, suspicious in Nepal, especially when you talk about the machinery. The people has a perception that we buy the machinery, but we cannot run the machineries. So when you, even in the small pumping stations, we have seen, because I work on the pumps and other things, so there has been a lot of, what you say, voltage fluctuation, motor burning, you see no spare parts, the other operation and maintenance problems. There is a psychology that the machinery, you should use less machineries in your system. Even in the water supply sanitation, which is one of my favorite sectors, you see, this, you know, it may be 16 kilometer, 20 kilometer gravity pipeline, they feel it is a reliable source. Because they put if the pump and pumping the water, they'll say, no, this will break down, it will every month you have to pay. So the understanding of all things has to be also the cost effectiveness or its benefit has to be, the economics of this has to be understood also. Now, lastly, as after Subodh sir has rightly pointed out, that the what and where we should do the research. That the energy poverty is one of the biggest poverty in the 21st century, I say. You see, sometimes I make this a switch a little bit with the political perspectives also, you see, that when a country where we want to, in our constitution, going toward the socialism or the, say, or communism, you see, but how you are looking on the energy perspective is not very, very clear. Here we say energy or electricity production, it is only for the, basically for the export purpose, you see. In Nepal, that is, you see, when you say you have the, every day now you'll see in our media that there is a great loss of the electricity. We are not use the electricity, so we have to build the transmission line and sell it to the India or to the Bangladesh, you see. So the internal consumption, how we are going to reach that has to be addressed. So I think largely we have to discuss on the policy matters. Second is the how we are going to invest in this sector. Third is the our scientific and technical manpower need. So these are the few challenges where we are still working. And as you know, that's RECON, the Renewable Energy Confederation of Nepal, which was formed about, officially, those who are working formally 4 years before. So in this last 4 or 5 years, we have been continuously advocating with the policy makers, decision makers, working with our academia, say Kathmandu University, our Tribhuvan University, the IOE, and with our other partners also. So I think with your support and help and cooperation, we can do more in these sectors. So thank you very, very much for your, especially you have already worked out the a little bit more on the Nepal scenario, potentialities. I think we have to discuss more concretely about might be concrete, even the basin wise, the places where it can be done, what you have shown in your pictures, you see. So once again, thank you very much. And thank you, RECON, for giving me the opportunity to be the part of this program. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Ganesh Shah. Thank you very much for your wonderful remarks. So you basically try to portray the condition of the country, because we still have perhaps low technical knowledge among people. So biomass and electricity consumption is like, as we know all, more than 68% is biomass in our total energy mixture. But people understood 3.5% is electricity share, but people understood energy means electricity, so that you rightly pointed out these things. So still it is not a mainstream. That's why we have alternative promotion, energy promotion center, you mentioned it. So I think in a nutshell, I think perhaps that was the reason of our low capabilities, maybe investment, financial capabilities. Our human resources are not well trained, and maybe we need to more investment on those areas as well. And maybe we need more research and development activities in collaboration with our private sector, industrial, I mean, all industrial sectors, government sectors, and those who already have tremendous experience and research experience, like Professor Andrew and all of, other universities, among all other universities in the world. So thank you very much, Mr. Saha. Now we have Honorable Member of National Planning Commission, Dr. KP Oli, has already joined. So namaste and welcome to
Namaste, everybody.
Dr. Oli, sir.
Thank you.
Am I सुनिरहेछ?
सुनिरहेको छ अलि।
Interruption भयो कि जस्तो लाग्यो. Hello. So without any delay, I request our keynote speaker, Dr. KP Oli. He is honorable member of National Planning Commission, and he has the portfolio of energy, water resource, and like these sectors. So we expect to hear from you, sir. The floor is yours, and I kindly request you to limit your presentation, if possible, within 15 minutes. Thank you very much, sir. The floor is yours.
Everybody, I think, is on board, and first of all, I would like to congratulate the organizer for this webinar, and specifically Professor Andrew Baker from Australia, and our ex-minister. I had the opportunity to listen very briefly about what he talked about. And actually, I am not fully aware of this actually, because I had a lot of other engagement. But basically, what I think is this is related to clean energy mechanism, and how we in Nepal are working on this, and how we will be able to harness the technology that has been actually developed and evolved in Australia, Germany, and even China and other countries also in future. So I think I could not hear much more from our ex-Prime Minister, ex-Minister, Mr. Shah, I think he has highlighted some of the issues because he has been working for a long time also. Particularly in this area, I have briefly mentioned by Sunilji or that we will be talking in this webinar basically to bring about the experiences and new ideas on clean energy system, particularly hydro and small scale dam projects also, and how the benefit of the dam project will be in the energy distribution mechanism, energy supply mechanism, and also reducing the extent of flash floods which we are facing today. So basically, we have, particularly in case of Nepal, we have a program, 15th five-year plan with long-term vision. And that actually explains about the role of alternative energy, including solar energy, bioenergy, and also form of energy, of course, is one of the most important area. So we are working on that, and so far, you know, for the last 100 years, we are in a very, still in infancy, I will say, because we have only over 1300 megawatt of energy available. And with respect to other alternative energy, we have about just over 55 megawatt of energy. But our major emphasis is on biogas sector, which is which has penetrated in large sector of rural community areas. And now we are facing some of the problems also in biogas, particularly the labor shortage even in the rural areas also. So new way of working, we are thinking that is you know, community based you know, biogas system which will be also supplied. And quite a few energy-based bioenergy system has been established within the country, and it is taking momentum. But unfortunately, because of the this pandemic, you know, COVID, from over the past 5-6 months now, the mobility of the technicians and other people into the village areas and to support and to provide technical assistance, it has been very largely limited. So this has also limited our implementation program. So that is the status here. And also many of the you know, hydro related project, although we are working, but still because of this you know, pandemic impact, we are facing the impact because shortage and things like that. Suniana? So our basically the government, we have plan and policies, particularly for alternative energy promotion also, so that in future we will have we have planned for solar energy also over 550 megawatt to be installed within the country in different states. So we have seen at least 50 megawatt of energy in each of the states based on solar power. Initially, that is what is our plan here, and particularly many of the other people have also might have said that we have given major drive in hydro energy sector. And in hydro energy sector, so far we have we are largely dependent on ROR system, and that actually in the context of climate change and rising temperature in the Himalaya region, in future I think it will be little bit of a different scenario. So the government is planning to go on dam project also. So dam project, particularly we have some flagship dam projects last year we have an agreement with a dam project of over 742 megawatt in Tamur River Basin, a dam project. Similarly, there are other projects also which we are working. The famous one which we have been listening is Budi Gandaki, which is still ongoing. And this year we were about to completely finish the, before the project commences, all the necessary work, for example, land acquisition and EIA and other things also. But again, because of this pandemic, we are a little bit late on this. And similarly, there are also other dam projects which are on, we are in the stage of planning and developing. Feasibility assessment is already done, and some DPR processes are also gone, particularly in Dudhkoshi River Basin area. And these are relatively bigger projects. But what I can see is, now we can also actually, private sector may be interested actually. And even the developer may be interested, even smaller project, dam projects also. Because this will have a tremendous impact, particularly the country like Nepal, where we have a very, very high degree of vulnerability in flash floods and tremendous, landslide, which we are now also facing. So this will circumvent, at least some of the studies have suggested that 16 to 20% of these type of, catastrophic events are circumvented if we have the dam projects also. So these are some of the findings of the research. So basically what we are trying to do is, energy is our major priority, particularly clean energy, hydro, and alternative energy, solar and hydro mostly. And in case of rural area, bioenergy, which is basically used from bioresources. We all know those who are participating here. So these are our major departure and policy thrust in Nepal, particularly for clean energy, because up to now also over 1 trillion rupees of our, and equivalent of foreign currency is we are investing on purchasing petroleum products. So petroleum oil and diesel, petrol, all these things. So gradually our actually emphasis is gradually to go into the cleaner energy mechanism, whereby our policy is also emphasizing on the use of electrical vehicles in the roads. Similarly, kitchen gradually to replace the kitchen through energy, clean energy, particularly hydro energy in cooking. And at the same time, irrigation is also one of the major part in Nepal. And our policy has emphasized actually to gradually replace the carbon-based fuel, which has been used in lifting water from underground gradually. So this is a major thrust that the present government is giving, particularly for the augmentation and enhancement of the clean energy mechanism into the country. Similarly, with respect to the surplus trade, because we have the capacity of feasible capacity of over 42,000 megawatt of energy generation from hydropower, and quite a lot from over 4,000 megawatt from energy, solar also. So any surplus energy, what we will do? We are also actually in close contact with the regional energy trade mechanism, whereby we are talking with the Indian government and at the same time Bangladesh government. And for that reason, we have the master plan, which has been already prepared, particularly on transmission line, actually to go from, to access from Nepal to India and India to Nepal and Nepal to China and China to Nepal also. There are over 7 points which are already been identified. And this way, the infrastructure, energy infrastructure planning, particularly in transmission line, which we have a master plan now, and we are working on that. And based on this, we have this 15th five-year plan, which also emphasizes on this. And there are many other aspects, particularly how best we can supply those energy and electrification throughout the country. We are almost over 90% of the population now are electrified. It means that, you know, not they are getting light actually. Where it is very, very remote area, there we have emphasized, our policy emphasizes actually to go on alternative energy, particularly solar energy, even in some cases wind energy, and small micro hydro also. So these are some of the broader policy aspects that we have promulgated by this government here, and the major emphasis and major beneficial and beautiful part of this is, you know, participatory. Mostly it is participatory, private sector and the community also. Communities are also taking part into different aspects of benefit sharing mechanism, resource use mechanism. This is inbuilt in the policy system. So these are some of the things that I would like to actually mention here on behalf of the government of Nepal and National Planning Commission at the federal level. Similarly, we have actually, you know, work on how much energy that investment can be brought by local level. We have 3 tiers of governance mechanism now in the federated structure. We have the federal structure at the center, and then we have provincial, then we have the local level. Local level, they can go as per their capacity. They can generate up to 3 megawatt of energy sector, small scale in the local level area, and similarly anything above 3 to 20 megawatts that the province will be able to do. And similarly, the federal government, they can go up to 200 megawatt, and anything above, you know, the big mega projects, then it will be in a collaborative way with the federal government and the investor within the country and outside the country. So that way, actually, it is a collaborative process. These policies are actually established, and it will be run through, the mega project will be run through a single window system, whereby the investor will come, and which, of course, because of this COVID, we are a little bit behind. But you know, when the COVID will come down gradually, I think our whole emphasis will go again. So energy sector, particularly clean energy sector and clean energy mechanism, is one of our priority. And already we are also exporting now. Earlier we are net exporter, but now we are also importing from Nepal also. Exporting from Nepal also to India. And it is another concept which we have brought is the concept of energy banking, whereby during rainy season, we have a lot of, we can generate more energy. And then that is one of the time when it is very, very heavily required in the tropical plain area of India, Bangladesh. And so there is another mechanism also. This is also within our policy. So within, if the COVID was not affected this time, we would have actually increased by about 1,000 megawatt already. So these are some of the broader picture that I put. The government is government policy and how we are moving with participatory way, bringing community together, bringing investment together, Nepali investor, private sector, foreign investors. That way we are moving in different aspect of energy investment and energy promotion. So these are some of the basic ideas of the government. Of course, there are problems of every project or every policy actually has to face some of the problems. Basically, a democratic country, and then we have you know, we have to work with the people. One of the major area is, you know, preparedness. We are focusing on preparedness now, because one of the policy departure of the government of Nepal is establishment of project bank. Because in the project bank, any project which need to be implemented should be actually
be within the bank, and that it means, you know, all the preparatory or work of the project has to be carried out before it is being implemented. So that means feasibility assessment, land acquisition, EIA, and then DPR. All this prepare, and they will be stayed into the bank, project bank, and we will actually, based on the priority, the government will actually prioritize and bring into that. That way, I think in the coming years, once the project bank is fully operational and established, then I think we will have less problem. Currently, we have one of the biggest problems which we are facing is the land acquisition, because many private lands, and if you talk about the transmission line or even land acquisition for the project site for hydropower development, even for the small scale mini hydro also, there are some problems. So these problems are gradually being solved, and people are also accustomed now and development agenda, particularly energy development agenda, and specifically clean energy agenda, we have been giving priority by the government of Nepal. So these are some of the policy area that we are working by the government of Nepal. I will stop here on this, and as far as time allows, I would like to listen more from experts and particularly advice from Professor Andrew from Australia. I think you are with Canberra or Sydney University. I am not sure. I was also part of a university. I was a visiting professor in Australia also some times ago. So I have visited, started from University of Darwin all the way to Queensland, and then finally Macquarie University. Anyway,
thank you,
I will stop here. Thank you very much, and welcome you all. And this is excellent. Actually, we can share these things in a broader way through webinar than bringing people together. And it is cheap also, relatively cheap also. And we can actually share good knowledge from different experts by such gatherings. Thank you very much for the organizers. Thank you. Thank you, Gunaraj.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
For your remarks. So basically, we hear policy about energy or energy policy in Nepal. So there are different forms of renewable energy that have been promoted from the government sector, but still renewable energy is not at mainstream. It is still alternative energy. So perhaps we have to think of how we can bring modern renewables into the mainstream energy of Nepal. And also we hear something about Nepal.
No, it has been mainstream law also. Please don't get confused. Because alternative energy is also mainstream now. You have to be very updated by law also, and by, you know, programmatically also.
Guraji, some noise is there were some background noise. So
Yeah.
take care of it.
I just stopped.
Nepal is prone to natural calamities, you know, large hydro, micro hydro. Perhaps there are it is prone to calamities, natural calamities, landslide, earthquakes, etc. So they might need a different source of renewable energy mixture into the national energy grid, so that even in the worst condition, there might be some backup energy available. So for that situation as well, solar, biomass, hydro, wind may play a major role to continue supply of energy in the country. So these are the few things we hear from Dr. Oli. So now, because we are very tight in our schedule, so without any delay, I would like to request Professor Jagannath Shrestha, who is former Director of Center of Energy Studies, Institute of Engineering, Tribhuvan University. For your remarks, please limit, because we are already behind the schedule, so I kindly request you to limit your remarks within 5-6 minutes. So now, floor is yours, Professor Shrestha.
Okay. Thank you. Gunraji, Surin sir.
Sunil sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Sabalai, namaskar. Thank you for all the speakers, and my special thanks to Professor Andrew Blackers for his very informative and motivating presentation. I have nothing to add in his presentation, but to reinforce his presentation, I would like to show some of the works that we have done at the Institute of Engineering, Kathmandu University. I will take around 5 minutes, okay? Let me share my screen. Host, please enable my screen sharing.
Okay, sir.
मलाई डिसेबल गरिरहेछ कि उसले स्क्रिन शेयरिङको.
Yeah, I will do. Yes, you can share, sir.
Okay, so I will go here. Okay. देखिन्छ screen? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so these are some of our works that we have done almost 20 years ago. Just to inform Professor Andrew Blackers.
Screen देखिएको छैन सर, screen.
के भयो?
Screen share भएको छैन सर.
कसरी त मैले शेयर गरे हो. एकछिन है. आयो?
Yes, aye, sir.
Okay. So these are some of the works that we have done at the Institute of Engineering, Kathmandu University. So this work will reinforce what Professor Andrew Blackers have already said. So we have a zero energy house, called Model for Energy Conservation. And just to add to Professor Martin Green has been here in our campus in 2003. Probably Professor Blacker knows him. Okay, so this is a Center for Energy Studies, also known as Zero Energy House. This is a living laboratory for the students studying Master of Science in Renewable Energy Engineering course, okay? So we have here pumping, microhydro, biogas, solar thermal, geothermal energy for air conditioning the house, energy storage, and using the biofuels, you know, the liquid, the fuels from the seed, and also the biogas for the cooking purposes in this house. So this is generally the zero energy house. And this is particularly was a project of National Planning Commission some 20 years ago. Well, as Professor Blacker said, water pumping from lower side to higher side, we have demonstrated it practically to show to our students that what they should be doing in future. So this is very interesting project that we have done. As you can see, you know, we have used the centrifugal pumps and pumping the water from the pond to the reservoir. And we are producing around, this is a small micro hydro plant, 3 kilowatt, and so using the 10 horsepower pumps. So this has been a very good example of pumping from lower lake to upper, and this could be a good example later on. So these are some of the pumps. This is the pond from where we lift the water to the reservoir here and run it to micro hydro plant, and that goes on continuously. And also we have, look at this building. This is an inverted roof. We tap the rainwater and take it to the pond. So this is a good recycling thing, see. And Professor Andrew Blacker said about the rooftop, and we have done some study in 2015. And in these studies, in this study, in Kathmandu, in Pokhara, in Biratnagar city, the average sunny area in the rooftop was found to be 15 square meters. And this is sufficient to generate around, let's say, 4 kilowatt hour every day. And that will be sufficient for the 90% of the households in Kathmandu, Pokhara, and Biratnagar city. So this project is going on, and Nepal Electricity Authority has approved this kind of thing. So if you can install 500 watt and more on your rooftop, this can be connected to NEA national grid. So this is a good example, yeah. So I have shown how much energy we can generate if we install 200 watt, 500 and so on. So the average, if you install 1,000 watt on the rooftop, we can generate 1,861 megawatt hour per day. So this could be a good example. And this supports the Professor Andrew Blacker's idea. And also, this is a very interesting fact, in 8th of May, 2016, Germany generated 87% of the energy from renewable energy sources, solar, wind, biomass, all kinds of things. They achieved this practically. So in one of the slides, Professor Andrew Blacker sent earlier that we can have 100% renewable energy by 2050. So based on German experiences, this can be achieved, not only in Europe, but in the other parts of the world also. So I believe that 100% renewable energy can be achieved by maybe 2050. And one thing that I would like to add is, in future, we might have a solar satellite power supply system. The one drawback of the solar is insolation time is very low, 4 hours, 5 hours. But if you go and install the solar satellite power system at the geostationary orbit, where you can have almost 24-hour solar insolation. And this energy, by passive way, by active way, you can beam to any part of the earth. So this could be a future technology later, okay? So having said that, we should be thankful to sun, which gives life, and thankful to water, which saves life, and also thank the air, which makes you alive, and also thank the plant, biomass, which gives food to live. So having said that, briefly, I have covered some of my ideas, and I would like to request Professor Andrew Blacker that we should discuss more in achieving the ideas that you have put forward and to implement it in Nepal in a practical way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Shrestha. Thank you for your brief remarks. So basically, you mentioned we have also done similar kind of work, though in a small scale, but we have initiated some work in Nepal as well. So our university, University and other universities are also working in this area. So our universities are also doing research to the scale they can, and within the limitation of resource constraints and perhaps the knowledge and expertise also we have limited. So even within that limitation, we are working quite well, but we need more collaboration and more experience from across the world. And one figure, I think we have, the Germany figure is, I think roughly they have around 40 to 50% electricity comes from renewable at the moment. So that I would like to point out one small figure. So now,
No.
without any delay, I would like to request Dr. Naren Cholagani, former Executive Director of Alternative Energy Promotion Center, for your remarks. Please kindly limit your remarks within 5 minutes. We are already behind the schedule. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, the organizers, that for the opportunity that you provided me to speak today. Dear KP Oli sir, Honorable Member, National Planning Commission, Mr. Ganesh Shah, the former minister, which was my minister when I was at AEPC, and also other speakers, and Professor Andrew Baker, and everyone participating today. There is not much also Jagannath sir, just providing us the opportunity, also some right from the field, some field level experience, also the data from the renewable energy sector, including the zero energy house. So KP Oli sir rightly already very well summarized how the government of Nepal is thinking and what is the plan in the near and a bit in midterm future. And also the Professor Andrew Baker rightly also very well technically elaborated what is the good potential for Nepal, including the renewable energy and particularly focusing on solar. So please allow me just briefly to go through. There are some key issues related to the renewable energy sector. So 100% renewable energy or renewable electricity that we have to distinguish. So for also the difference between gigawatt and gigawatt hour. So sometimes we confuse that, okay, so many megawatts, but it's not that the megawatt we can use. We have to use megawatt hours. So the difference between power and energy. So sometimes confusing. So that's sometimes not always the install capacity gives the power for us to use for us in our daily life. So 100% renewable electricity, that's very much feasible for Nepal, and we're very close to that. 100% renewable energy is quite challenging because of so many reasons. For example, the transport, still to get 100% electrification in the transport, we need to move, we need to go a bit too far away. So it's still not in the near future. So air and surface transport, and also for passenger and freight transport. So there are lots of things can be done, but even we cannot get the 100% the renewable electricity in the transport sector. Also the cooking, largely traditional biomass cooking, that's also even in coming decades also we cannot completely replace the biomass fuel by renewable energy sources like clean cooking because of the reliability and also the security of supply, and also the animal feeding. So the habit of the people, of economics, applicability, that's basically in rural areas, and also space heating in the hills and mountain, and also for industrial processing and manufacturing. So it's not that easy to inject 100% renewable energy into these areas, though electricity might be possible because we have largely hydro and also complemented by solar. The challenges for Nepal's energy future. So we don't want to go again these days of power cuts. No more power cuts again, no more blackouts. That is what we're thinking of. So how to ensure energy security, reducing vulnerability to energy supply. So that's also a challenge we have. And energy for all, connecting 100% of the population to clean electricity. So that also we have to achieve, and also sustainable energy supply. It is not just supplying clean electricity, but also supplying reliably. So reliable and the secured supply of renewable electricity is quite important. The reasons for 100% renewable electricity supply, that the climate change mitigation needs 50 to 95% of reduction of the greenhouse gas emission by 2050. That's the IPCC statement. CO2 emission from fossil fuel use cause by far the largest share of GHG emission. Nuclear energy, no sustainable alternative, and carbon capture and storage lasts only for a few decades. That's accepted at all. So there are the issues that we have to move to 100% renewable electricity supply. That's the global figure. So for 100% renewables for Nepal, that's the renewable electricity will need storage. So 100% renewable electricity supply, solar and wind supply may constitute up to 90% worldwide. Solar and wind energy are intermittent. 100% renewable energy systems need substantial storage. Diversification of energy resources are required. So politically, we have now pluralism in Nepal, but we are not at practicing pluralism in renewable energy development. And South Asia regional power trade, which also Dr. Oli rightly pointed out, and also Professor Andrew as well. And we have to look big and go beyond Nepal's national boundary in order to have the sustainable energy solution. Pump storage, pump hydro, and also the cascade hydropower. That's the good potential, and the many hydropower plants yet to be built. So before we build something wrong, also we have to think of not to damage that good potential that the Nepal's the hydropower setting and geography and the topography. Nepal's renewable energy, including hydropower, can act as a green battery in the Indian subcontinent. So look at the example of Norway. The Norwegian hydropower system allows seasonal storage in Europe and avoids massive losses. 15% of the annual production is stored in Norway. So the Norwegian the storage hydro system can easily be converted to a huge pump storage system due to cascades of storage lakes. So during the when there is surplus power in the grid, they just use the grid electricity to pump the hydro. And when there is a deficit in the grid and when the price is high, and they just say, they run the hydropower plants and they generate electricity and they sell in much higher price. That is how they are just doing very good business. So geographically, topographically, Nepal also situated in very good condition to act Nepal's renewable energy to act as green battery for the Indian subcontinent, which we have to materialize. So we have to have the combination of all the available renewable energy sources, not just one sources. So in order to make sustainable, so solar power, maybe not that massively wind power, but largely hydropower. So hydro and solar complementing, and wherever possible, also bringing wind into it. And the hydro, not like in traditional manner, but like storage hydro. That's how we can get the 100% renewable electricity, and maybe also in the future a bit, not 100%, but significantly more than what we are currently generating or consuming renewable energy. So that's it from my side, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chonglagai. So thank you very much for your remarks. So 100% renewable or renewable electricity, you raised one small question, and 100% renewable could be not possible in all sectors, but I think 100% renewable is a target, and in Nepalese context as well, we are already more than 80% renewables, but traditional biomass is also renewable. So the key message of Andrew, I think we can go to 100% renewables, that's the target. So we could achieve 80%, 90%, that's better. So all biomass or other source of energy we can replace by electricity. And the message is, I think, it's renewable energy, not renewable electricity, but we'll come back to the Professor Andrew at the end of the session. Now I would like to request Dr. Lakshman Ghimire, Assistant Director of Alternative Energy.
Sunil sir is mute.
Hello. सुनिएको छ सुनिल सर?
सुनिन्छ sir.
Thank you, Sunil sir, for me introducing me. So let me start my brief comments. There is a time constraint. So in this program, Honourable KP Oli from the National Planning Commission, our ex-minister Ganesh Shah, Professor Ganesh Shah, Professor Andrew from ANU, and then other experts, and then other prominent experts. So let me allow to briefly put my points basically based on the Professor Andrew's presentation. So let me also highlight that we must be very clear on the 100%. Are we talking about the 100% renewable energy or the renewable electricity for the context of Nepal? So we need to very clear on that, those two aspects. If we talk about the renewable energy, then we can elaborate more on that topic. And if we talk about the renewable electricity, then we can have some sort of idea to confine it. And then the second one is, Andrew also mentioned that the 100% renewable energy in the context of Nepal is also possible. But I think if we are aiming in that way, we need to have massive work on the demand side of the renewable energy management. If you see like the load management from the demand perspective, we can generate electricity in the daytime from the solar and then some time from the wind, and then we cannot get the electricity or energy from 24 hours. So we need to have some work in the demand side management as well. At the same time, other experts also highlighted that we need to have some sort of energy storage system. Like if we directly connected to the grid from the solar PV, then it could be somehow competitive with the cost. But if we have a system with the battery storage, then we have some experience that it could be the costlier solution for the Nepal. And then there is also debate, and then I have seen many like articles and the documents. There is also debate: is there the megawatt scale hydropower are the renewables or not? And so we need to be discuss on that as well, I guess. And then at the same time, for the context of Nepal, we must include that the off-grid technologies that we are promoting at this time, alternative energy promotion, we are promoting the solar mini grids, mini hydro, and then some large-scale biogas as well to the remote and poor areas, and in some urban areas as well. We are providing the electricity access to the poor and rural area people from those isolated technologies. So we need to have some sort of inclusion of those off-grid technologies as well. And then also we need to include, for the context of Nepal, if we talk about the renewable energy, we need to include the biomass and then biogas, which is more or less we have somehow competency in biogas technology as well. I believe that 100% renewable energy or renewable electricity will also demand the investment in the complementary resources, like, as I already mentioned, for the grid stability and short duration of storage that we didn't have it today. And then I agree with Professor Andrew's presentation that in the context of Nepal, we also our policies and plans are also focusing on the renewable energy, and then we are promoting on that way as well. And then it's to mitigate the climate change will require the huge and the massive investment in the renewable. Not only reduce the fossil fuel generation, but actually in the context of Nepal, we do not have that much generation from the thermal or fossil fuel generation, but also we need to have work on from the other sector like the industry sector or the transportation sector. If we take the examples of the transportation sector, then we need to work out for the research and development and then massive deployment of electrical vehicles. At the same time, for examples, we could have a higher price of electric vehicles so that we cannot implement at the massive scale at the competency level with the conventional vehicles. So there are some works that we need to work on to direct towards 100% renewable energy. So in conclusion, due to the time constraint, let me put my conclusion. Yes, we need to distinguish in the energy sector and then electric sector. Of course, there is a possibility of 100% renewable energy, but we need to have lots of work. in the policy formulation, like a policy formulation, research and development, and then the government initiatives with the support, financial incentives, all those measures we need to take it. And then at last, I would like to thank everybody on the behalf of AEPC for joining this event. And then I would like to provide my special thanks to the chairperson of the RECON for organizing and coordinating this event as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ghimire. Thank you very much. As you said, 100% renewable is possible. Of course, there are lots of groundwork is necessary, so there is no doubt. But at least is you from the authentic organization of the government, and we have also Dr. KP Oli from National Planning Commission. So I think government sector will certainly look after making it possible in future. Now, I would like to request Mr. Naveen Bhuzel, who is former president of Electric Manufacturers Association Nepal, for your remarks. Please limit your remarks as short as possible because we are quite behind the schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Loni. I'll surely take care of the time and try to limit myself within 4-5 minutes. Honorable Dr. KP Oli, respected former Minister Ganesh Shah, Professor Andrew Blakers, and all the participants. Namaste and very good afternoon to you all. Thank you, Professor Blakers, for your elaborate and fascinating presentation with in-depth, analysis of the various renewable energy technologies and the analysis of storage possibilities. We got to learn a lot from your deliberations. As a person involved in the promotion of renewable energy, specifically solar energy systems, I have been really delighted and enthused to hear your presentation. I think we need to do this more often in the future too. So far as adopting these various technologies in Nepal is concerned, I totally agree with Dr. Professor Blakers. We also believe that the Nepalese state needs to focus far more on mainstreaming the renewable energy systems, visualizing mainly solar, wind, microhydro, biomass, and those two with reasonable degree of storage in order to usher energy mix, which in turn will help to boost our energy security. So that we are with you on this. Mind you, I did not include the large-scale hydro within the framework of renewable energy here, because it is already the mainstream energy source in Nepal, rightly so. And so when we talk about renewable energy, we mainly talk about solar, wind, or microhydro and biomass. Okay, now, yeah, and then we surely also need to, first of all, yeah, there's a great deal of interest actually lately in the implementation of especially solar power plants. I understand that, more than 300 megawatt peak of projects have already gotten survey license. So there's also considerable interest to promote rooftop type systems, but somehow there is some kind of reluctance in the part of the policymakers to actually allow all these systems to be developed. So we have to somehow try to cut this situation and get a breakthrough so that all these initiatives are actually dealt with properly. Now, we surely also need to gradually adapt the energy storage to balance the consumption pattern during the day, as well as to balance the seasonal variation of consumption of electricity and also production of electricity. So this will be really instrumental in the optimization of our grid system in the future. That surely has to be done. I heard, quite interesting things about the pumped hydel systems that Professor Blakers talked about. when I first heard about this, I was a little bit, concerned, because I thought that maybe it'll be a little bit complicated or, difficult in our scenario, because all the Himalayan rivers, they flow from high mountain range and with a very high speed. And they also bring along with them a lot of, turbidity, debris like logs and rocks. So to pump that water upstream would be difficult. That was my thinking. But after hearing him, about pumping water from a small lake on the downstream and to the upper lake on the upstream, I thought that could be also a very interesting idea. Now, just battery storage is something that we would be quite interested to know more about, and the suitability of such systems in our case. If we can provide credible solutions, I think we can, especially to address the evening, high demand. Like we have, a high demand at about 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, what we call the duck neck curve. In order to deal with this, I think the battery storage can do it. So although currently it's pretty expensive, with the fast growing trend of reduction in the price of battery storage, I think this would be quite an idea, and as a representative of private sector RE business, I would like to mention that we would be very interested and open to explore opportunities for cooperation in the field of battery storage. We are willing to invest our bit in the sector, and if the right policies are brought up by the makers, we will be very much willing to look into this. And maybe we can also start thinking about some ideas. For example, each municipality having certain degree of storage to facilitate storage nationwide. I was hearing that the optimum storage required would be storage capacity of a day's consumption. In Nepal, according to the latest NEA annual report, the total consumption last year was in the range of 7,500 gigawatt hour, which translates to about 20 gigawatt hour of energy per day. If we start,
Naveen sir, we are quite behind the schedule, so I would like to request you to cut down your.
Okay. So, my idea was, if each and every substation of NEA would have some degree of storage, that'll give a very good advantage to the grid system. Now, if I may, I was also interested to ask a small question to Professor Blakers. In terms of percentage, how much energy is lost or wasted?
Mr. Bhuzel, we are quite behind the schedule, and we would like to take few questions because our.
Thank you for providing me this opportunity to.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Bhuzel, because we had overwhelming enthusiasm from participants, because we had 120 in the Zoom. Now still 95, 94 people are following. So they might have questions to hear from Professor Andrew. So thanking to all speakers, presenters, commentators, everyone. I would like to open the floor for question answer, and we'll take few questions. But before that, when we talk about energy, we don't have to miss gender in energy. So in today's program, I, on behalf of organizer, apologize that not having a female speaker in our panel, in our webinar, so that I apologize. So first I would like to invite, because I can see here Dr. Indira Sakya. So with apology from organizer side. I would like to invite Dr. Indira Sakya for your brief remarks or questions, queries to Professor Blaker and other speakers, other keynote speakers and commentators. Dr. Indira Sakya, if you are here. So I think, yes, Dr. Sakya, you would like to say something? Okay, then I will check some questions, and I request Gururaj-ji, if there are any questions in the chat box, please pass on to me, or you can ask from your side as well.
Yeah.
So I found, I saw one question in the chat box. What is the average life cycle of solar PV? And at the end of the life, it be recycled. I think this is quite interesting question for researchers and our industrial partner as well, industry people as well. So if you can share some experience on it, Professor Blaker.
Recycling is simply not an issue. A silicon solar cell panel is 95% or 90% aluminium frame and glass with a little bit of silicon, a little bit of metal. It's going to be a very small component of the total recycling and waste stream in Nepal. And systems will develop to manage it. It's a non-issue. It's much more important to focus on the big issues, which is how to get more solar cells into Nepal as fast as possible to raise people's living standards.
Thank you, Professor Blaker. If there are any questions, you can raise your hand, or you can also take it from the chat box.
Can I ask you one question, Professor Blaker?
Go ahead.
You mentioned about the agri-voltaics, yeah?
Yeah.
Due to shedding, the agriculture yield will be reduced by 10%. That is what you said. Is it based on your experiment or just a theoretical value?
No, there has been a lot of work on agrivoltaics around the world, and if you shade 30% of the crop, the amount of produce you get goes down from anywhere between an actual gain down to 20 or 25% loss, and it depends on which crop. So it's a very simple matter to do a search on the internet to come up with hundreds of experimental studies of agrivoltaics. And you can apply them to whatever crops you have in Nepal.
Thank you. We are interested in case of paddy, paddy.
Yeah, paddy will be, paddy rice is one of the crops that actually suffers more loss than others because it's not water constrained, it's sitting in water. The sort of crops that typically do well, the sort of crops that do well are crops that are water stressed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'd just like to add a comment that I don't think I got through very clearly. Silicon photovoltaics is the big one around the world. It is more than 50% of all new generation capacity is silicon photovoltaics. That's where the world is going because it is much cheaper than anything else. My strong advice is focus on the main game, which is off-the-shelf silicon photovoltaics. You don't have much wind in Nepal. Silicon PV is the way to go with pumped hydro balancing of the grid. And for balancing of the grid, I strongly recommend not damming rivers. Go for off-river pumped hydro. It's a completely mature technology. You have vast numbers of places to put off-river pumped hydro, and you can go to our global atlas and look at them. There's hundreds or even thousands in Nepal, and you only need about 4. So focus on the main game, which is silicon PV with pumped hydro balancing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
everything else is just small. Yeah, there'll be a bit of run-of-river hydro, there'll be a bit of biomass, there'll be a bit of this, bit of that. Silicon PV is where the world's going. And I know that I come from Australia, where we're installing every year more PV than would be required to supply all of Nepal's annual energy. Every year we do it. And we know a thing or two about it. And that's where the world's going.
Yeah. So perhaps I mean, we are talking small scale, and all different kind of energy mixture is due to the nature, geographical condition, social and technical capabilities. So that is on one side, but on the other side, we have to think of big scale, all renewables. We have to enhance our growth, GDP, our livelihood. So we need some sort of balance in between, I think. And there are some questions, and I also have one question in my mind. So as you are saying, solar is the only solution to enhance energy supply per capita. Also, we can increase per capita solar in Nepal.
Not the only, but by far the major.
By far,
everything else
yeah. I mean, yeah. By far. I mean, the most important source, we can say. But we import all solar PV from abroad. So still economically, because as you know, we are economically not very strong. Our country is not very strong. So what do you suggest? Is it time to have solar manufacturing industries? Maybe we can bring cell and do other processing in Nepal, or at least, I don't know, at what stage do you see Nepal can start on doing its own solar industry in Nepal?
I think you need to talk to India, which is reluctant to import vast amounts of solar from China. And India and Nepal could work together to have at least some, to have a fully integrated local solar PV industry. Nepal can't do it alone. It's too small. It's not an advanced manufacturing country. India and Nepal together can do something.
Okay. Thank you, Baker. And there is one.
Yeah, I believe this process is already underway. There are a couple of companies considering manufacturing solar PV modules here in Nepal by importing certain components like cells and things like that. Just for your information. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, thank you, Mr. Buzel. So we can bring cell and then produce module and other stops. So there is another question I can see, because there are also some discussion going on hydrogen storage, transportation, generation in Nepal. But in your presentation, you already say it's by far expensive and it's not competitive to other storage technology, but still, how do you see hydrogen generation, storage and transportation is technically feasible and economically viable in Nepal? Is this technology sustainable in resource constrained countries like Nepal? What do you suggest?
Hydrogen is all about hype. There is the electric vehicle industry, the electric heating industry, the electric storage through batteries and pumped hydro is orders of magnitude bigger than hydrogen, and will remain so because hydrogen is so woefully inefficient. It's so bad to throw away 3/4 of your electricity and you only get 1/4 back. Whereas with pumped hydro and batteries, you only lose about 10 to 20% of your energy when it goes through a storage system. Hydrogen has a future as a chemical precursor for plastics, ceramics, and jet fuel and things like that. It has a very small future as a storage medium, and hydrogen vehicles are nowhere compared with electric vehicles. The future has already been decided for transport. It's electric vehicles, it's electric cars, it's electric buses, it's electric trucks. The hydrogen vehicle has lost, and you just got to look at the relative sizes of the electric transport industry versus the hydrogen transport industry to see that. The only place that hydrogen will have a chance will be ammonia for long distance shipping. Electric will win in short distance shipping, and perhaps synthetic jet fuel or even hydrogen for intercontinental aircraft. Even for short haul aircraft, electric aircraft will win. There is a very small market in transport for hydrogen. Don't get sidetracked into hydrogen. It's just not going to work for Nepal. You can't make hydrogen at a competitive price because your solar and your wind is so poor compared with a place like Australia or the Middle East or Western China or the deserts of Chile or a dozen other countries. You simply can't compete.
Okay, thank you, Professor Blaker. I think we are already far behind the schedule. I would like to read out one of our participants' comment. He said, your presentation may give new dimension in solar energy policymakers and other stakeholders in the future. So I hope, because we have honorable member from National Planning Commission, so he can influence the policy in national level. Also representative from Alternative Energy Promotion Center who are implementing the renewable energy issues in Nepal. So I think this session, this webinar can have fruitful impact to our policymakers as well as private and other non-governmental sectors. And we as a university, of course, we have wonderful experience discussing among different speakers. And I hope we can bring new collaboration in research, implementation, development, together with the government, universities from abroad, our universities among the Nepal, within the Nepal. So I hope this webinar can have some fruitful outcome in days ahead. And if there are any pertinent questions, I ensure that we'll list out the questions and we'll communicate via email after getting the answers from our experts. So now, request Dr. Daniel Tuladar to give a vote of thanks on behalf of organizer and conclude the session or for the closing remarks of the session. Dr. Daniel Tuladar.
Sunil sir, for giving me an opportunity to give a vote of thanks to all the participants. So first of all, I'd like to thank our speaker, Professor Andrew Brackers, for your nice presentation and enlightenment in the field of renewable energy, as well as I'd like to thank our Ganesh Shah sir for remarks, Professor Ganesh Shah, Narayan Cholagai, Dr. Krishna Prasad Oli, Mr. Navin Rujel, as well as I'd like to thank Mr. Gunaraj Takal for organizing such a webinar. And in the behalf of our Department of Mechanical Engineering, Kathmandu University, I'd like to thank all the participants. And if there is any question in this regard, you may mail to this organizer, and also we can view a lot of comment in this regard. So saying these few words, I'd like to thank you all, organizer and everyone, participant, and see you all in this COVID situation we are seeing in the virtual way. In future, we'll meet again in the real world. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lohani sir. And thank you all. I like to conclude in this way.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Lohani sir,
Everyone.
is there anything?
No, yes, it's okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Blaker. Thank you, Dr. Oli, all participants. Thank you, Gudraji.
Thank you. Special thanks to Sunil Lohani sir. Thank you, Dr. Oli. Thank you, Andrew, Blackers, and thank you all for the very nice program. And we are committed to supply the report presentation very soon.